The Meads Of Asphodel were a band I got to know of in the days of Kerrang in the mid-90s. It was through the fanzine Godrea, which I got regularly sent, and then suddenly this mysterious band called the Meads Of Asphodel arrived on my desk. And I listened to it and thought, good grief, this is interesting, it's very different. What the hell is going on here? What are they doing? I'm not quite sure what they're doing, but rather like what they're doing. And I didn't actually know at the time whether this was a bunch of guys who A, didn't know what they were playing, and B, really couldn't play, or really did know what they're doing, and had totally deconstructed music to the point when they were playing it so brilliantly it sounded discordant. But I really liked it, and the more you heard it, the more they moved on, the more fascinated I became by what they were doing and how they were doing it. And of course the fact they were mysterious and nobody really knew who was in the band made it even more fascinating.
On a cold spring morning, around 1830, a man was hung on a tree upon a mound of dirt. This is his story of a man-made God.
There's 7 archangels that are commonly, well, people roll off their tongue. There's only one angel that is any meaning at all, and that is Metatron, who equates to Michael. So I just thought it'd be a fitting name. And again, with most of the imagery, the songs, the lyrics, it's got sentences and names that are all historically accurate or part of the myth beyond the myth, that if people want to read it and say, what the fuck's that, they can look it up and they can go, because no lyric is nonsense. Yeah, every lyric I do has got a meaning. Whether you want to find it is completely up to you. But that's beyond the core of the music, because the music is the foremost, most important thing.
My uncle was a guitarist and my cousin was a guitarist, and she passed just a few chords down to me, knocking on heaven's door, and stuff like that. And that's how I just progressed from there. Just learning myself and covered a few songs, and that was it. As we have friends and people who are always saying, you're wasting your time, get a job, get a life, get a mortgage, get this, but that's not important to me. I'd rather say I've fulfilled my dreams and lived my life the way I wanted to live it and enjoyed it. But unfortunately, reality always touches on that. Let's put it this way, all my life I just want to be a musician. That's all I've ever wanted to be. And so far, I've managed to complete that, but there will come a time when I have to face the real world and stop all this nonsense and become a grown-up. Yes, tea and cannabis are my fortes.
I think I've seen the demos and terrorising the imagery mainly, because I think the first thing I said to you is, do I have to wear armour? And can I get some acid? I do remember we were doing the Exhuming album, and me and James were at a bus stop outside the studio. I said, James, what if this is shit and no one likes it? Hello.
The name we felt at the time was quite apt. It was different. It was just felt right at the time. It means Fields of Lilies, which is a place in Hades where shadows roamed as kind of versions of themselves. Originally, the band was based around a lot of mythological things, like especially kind of Old Testament mythology. It kind of progressed into all sorts of ghastly war scenarios.
And this is my first ever demo, which Metatron heard and which I got the job with the Meads from. I got a phone call, which I actually ignored for about 2-3 weeks, because I was just like, I can't be asked to speak with this guy, it's just going to be crap, he's going to go.
And there was another person, Alex from Supernal, knew, who lived in Wales. That he said was a possible person that may well could adapt to the ideas I had.
You phoned, but it was in the middle of a football match. And we won that football match, and I was in a good mood, so I rang you back.
What I find crazy is, you know, our t-shirt, English fucking black metal. If you hadn't replied to that phone call, that could have said Welsh fucking... I don't even know what Welsh black metal sounds like.
That's a good point.
Like Lost Prophets on crack or something.
That could well very nearly have happened.
I can't remember what the first thing I ever heard of theirs was, but it was just kind of strange and odd, and kind of black metal, but a mix of lots of different things. And, you know, just a strange, amazing anomaly in our mix, really.
Well, originally, as the demos will reveal, it was to create something that was completely different and would make people wonder what was going on. Something that was not part of what you would call black metal or death metal.
So I would never have joined a band where it's just metal, it's just this, it's just that. Because with my solo project Quintus, I always wanted to go into all music. You know, why couldn't black metal be merged with all these other influences?
If you can get a dark and eerie atmosphere with a cello that you can't get with a guitar, why not? What's wrong with that?
We all have wide variety of tastes in music.
Once you taught them how to lock down, I sort of, there's a bit of Something Frost in there. There's a little bit of Napalm Death in there. Hang on a minute, some early Venom influences, or Motorhead, they suddenly move and you hear space rock. And you think, hang on, what are they doing?
Blues and jazz, pop and rock and everything, drum and bass, everything. We just love all forms of music. We don't see any problem with merging it all into one noise.
So I think those purists who say metal belongs to drums, bass, guitar and screaming vocals really are sad because they're missing a whole world out there. And what the Meads are doing is actually making that instrumentation fit into their psyche, their view of music. They're not compromising. If anything, what they're doing is increasing their lack of compromise.
I think the most cringeworthy moment of the Meads that I've had is that there's a battle metal special in the Metal Hammer, and we were in the battle metal special. And I thought, what is battle metal? What? Do you play the drums with the swords instead, and that's your drum sound? I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
It's like all these emo, mathcores, they're all just invented by the magazines.
But at least those genres relate to the style of music as opposed to battle metal, which seems to be
The image.
just about if you have the swords.
Well, Metatron's real hatred is reggae, and I've tried forcing reggae in, but he keeps on catching me
I
out.
can't abide it. But each, you know, I appreciate why people do like it, but I've never gone with it personally.
So we won't be hearing No Woman No Cry cover.
I don't mind the song, but no. Who knows? You never say no with this band, do you?
Absolutely, that's the whole thing. There's no rules to how we sound. But I always describe our sound. People always say, "Oh, you call yourself a black metal band," and you're not. Black metal is always going to be the spine of the Meads.
Black metal is comprises a lot of variety of music, so I think they can be labeled as black metal. It's okay because black metal is the most varied, musically varied genre in heavy metal. Obviously, there's something about them that people get instinctively beyond just purely a black metal audience.
Yeah.
There was something resonates beyond that, and they're not just purely a black metal band. I mean, you don't only sort of put sort of various labels on them just to kind of give some kind of guidance.
But I think the correct term for us is experimental extreme metal.
There's a pigeonhole.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
how
look
you want
at
to pigeonhole.
a wall of pigeonholes, and there would be a band for each one. And who makes half these titles up is anyone's guess. But black metal, it's got so many subgenres, isn't it? It's more powerful than the death, the doom. I think it's absolutely wonderful. The things it does and splinters into is incredible. Isn't
I
it?
think
It's all
the-
black metal rooted.
The album that had the biggest impact for me, black metal wise, experimental black metal wise, it was Arcturus La Masquerade in Flanell, which just took black metal, turned it on its head, and then reinvented it completely. And that album and Sgt. Pepper's are the two biggest albums in my book.
Also a black metal album.
The Beatles, satanic as hell.
I think the problem with an image is as strong as the Meads of Asphodel, which in this case is armour. is that it always helps and it always hinders, because it helps you get noticed at first and people go, wow, it's a bit different. You're not dressing in spandex, not dressing in denim and leather, you're not dressing in black, you're dressing in armour, but people notice that. However, once people notice that, that becomes the focus of their attention, and they go, Meads of Asphodel? Who? Well, they wear armour. Oh, them! Right! I don't think I've ever heard them, but I've seen the photos. So I think it's always a double-edged sword. Any strong and striking image inevitably gains attention but takes away from the core.
I always like bands that kind of think of every last little detail from the aesthetics, you know, how they look, how they present themselves on stage all the way through. And those are the kind of bands I kind of trust, that it's not just jeans and t-shirt. You know, first of all, I think they kind of, it just proves that they really mean what they say, that they will take it to all the other extents. And you want kind of bands that kind of create a world you can kind of live inside of as well.
This is a stupid band.
And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4.
I feel like I'm a mobile tank. I'm not actually in the photo for the second album. It's a bit of trivia for documentary.
Yeah, it was always a different concept. We're doing this kind of medieval theme.
Yeah.
So for the visuals, this is what we do. James?
Yes, sir.
Help me out. To keep the whole band and the image how it was from its very concept is very, very important. That's why my face generally, I don't want it seen because of that very, very reason. Many bands that start, if you look at them at their fourth album, they generally tend to change. People come out the woodwork, the hats are off. Maybe it's that egotistical lure to be known beyond the voice. Maybe you want that face to be plastered on every mag, but that doesn't bother me at all. The band is a living entity.
It's so important that the UK's metal scene has its own heroes.
And we're very proud to speak English. It's very, very important.
It's vital we have homegrown talent. A, because it's nice to know we can still do it as a nation. And there is a certain nationalism and pride in it. But B, because I think kids want heroes they can look up to. And if they've got heroes on their own doorstep, like the Meads and bands of that ilk, who are individual, driven by their own beliefs, who don't care about commerciality, but just want to go out and make fascinating, challenging music, then it inspires those kids to go and do the same thing.
The UK black metal bands are varied. You know, some are very primitive, Cradle Filth are very, major sounding symphonic stuff. Meads are experimental. So, I don't know, I don't see any, typical UK black metal sounds at all.
I don't think there is such a thing as an English sound. There is a Swedish sound, there's a Gothenburg sound, there's a Norwegian sound, there's sounds, but you can't pluck an English sound. But Balsagoth and Cradle of Filth and Akakokin and now Nathway, they're just individual monsters, aren't they? Which is great. That's English for you. Everything in England, you get one or two bands that epitomise a genre, and below that, the bottom drops forever. And most bands that are genre-defining in this extreme or metal world, they're all English anyway, apart from the peculiar Norwegians.
Bands like the Meads count for everything as far as the British scene are concerned, and long may they carry on doing it.